Hiya. So this video is about the freedom information request that I've submitted to Cheshire Constabulary. I'll just crack straight on with that. I started it off with a background context for reference. During the 2024 Winsford Pride event, a local councillor, it was me, reported child safeguarding concerns to a police officer regarding a stall's content. The stall displayed brightly coloured postcards and items at child eye height with messages including "You sexy little swine," "Non-binary hottie," "Turfs out, trans rights now," "Proud parent of a gender variant child," "Trans lesbians are totally valid and really hot too," "Kink is so welcome at our Pride," and then there was a whole load of others that were listed. They had a go at J.K. Rowling. They had like colouring books where the word boy was crossed out and replaced with something else, and just they also had like embroidered discs which showed breasts. I don't know what embroidered discs, 12 of them, that showed pairs of breasts, women's breasts on each one, and four of them showed double mastectomy scars. So it's basically just promoting surgery to children. And all of these things were very brightly coloured. They were all at child eye height. So additionally, so I've gone on about the embroidered disc. A Cheshire Constabulary police officer present at this event in uniform declined a request by me to examine the stall despite its proximity, later alleging the councillor was abusive to stall holders, no evidence provided, and issuing an arrest warning. Separately at this event, a burlesque-style performance involved a man in platform boots, skimpy women's underwear with a smiley face covering over the crotch, and star-shaped nipple stickers removed during the dance, performed in front of many children. Police were present throughout the event, but as far as public records show, no further action has been taken. So these are my freedom of information questions. 1. Organisational position on safeguarding risk. Does Cheshire Constabulary hold a recorded position on whether the promotion of sexualised or ideologically charged messages and embroidered discs depicting breasts and mastectomy scar displayed around child eye height during a public event like Winsford Pride 2024 poses potential child safeguarding risk warranting investigation? If so, please provide the position and any related documentation. So with that, I'm not asking them, did it pose a child safeguarding risk? I'm asking them, by the sound of that, does it sound like it potentially could, and therefore would warrant an investigation? Because when they were asked to investigate something they were standing right next to, they very explicitly said, with witnesses present, they had no concerns about it and they weren't prepared to look. When the stall holders later said that councillor was abusive, which wasn't true, and they couldn't have evidenced it because it just didn't happen, that councillor, me, was told, if you do that again, you will be arrested. So I said I didn't do that, and the officer said, as long as you don't do it again, you've nothing to worry about, have you? That was the other officer. So, and again, there was not only witnesses there to that, but that was filmed, and we've got the video footage of that. So that's what happened. 2. So I'm asking them, I'm not just asking them, what do you think about that? I'm asking them, do you hold a recorded position? Because freedom of information requests are all about what's recorded, what records people keep, what documents they've got, what the formal policies are, etc., etc. 2. Specific concerns about content. Does Cheshire Constabulary have any recorded concerns about the messages and items listed in the being promoted around or to children at Winsford Pride 2024? If concerns exist for some but not others, please specify which items or messages are not considered concerning and provide the rationale. Officer conduct standards, this is number 3. Does Cheshire Constabulary have a recorded view or policy stating whether an officer declining to examine materials reported as a safeguarding concern by a known local councillor, when the materials are readily available, meets the expected ethical and professional conduct standards? If so, please provide details. Number 4, reports of safeguarding concerns. Did any officer present at Winsford Pride 2024 notify Cheshire Constabulary of verbal child safeguarding concerns raised by a local councillor, and if yes, provide copies of any reports with names redacted if required. And B, please state further action or response. State whether further action or response was considered, and if so, what that was. Yeah. So if that incident that happened there wasn't passed on by that officer, I think that would highlight that there is potentially some bias there, and at the very least, some flaws in the procedure and the policies that force has in place to guard against that. So that would be helpful to know. Okay, 6. Warning issued to a councillor. Does Cheshire Constabulary have a recorded position on whether issuing a verbal warning to a councillor for alleged abuse of stallholders without evidence and following their raising safeguarding concerns aligns with good practice or ethical policing standards? And if so, please provide details. 7. Colleague officer's warning. Does Cheshire Constabulary have a recorded view on whether a second officer's warning to the councillor, also without evidence, aligns with ethical policing standards? And if so, please provide details. 8. Performance safeguarding risk. Does Cheshire Constabulary hold a recorded position on whether a burlesque-style performance involving men in skimpy underwear with a smiley face over the crotch and removable nipple stickers performed in front of children at Winsford Pride poses a risk of being sexually inappropriate or harmful to children? And if yes, what recorded plans, if any, does Cheshire Constabulary have to ensure performances at future local Pride events are appropriate and safe for children? B. What policies and procedures were in place during Winsford Pride 2024 and Chester Pride 2023 and 2024, governing officer responses to incidences and reports being made of potentially inappropriate performances or behaviours around children at public events? Please provide copies. C. What policies and procedures exist now addressing the same issues, and please provide copies. D. If no such policies exist or they do not cover public events or performances, please confirm this and state any recorded intentions to address this ahead of future Pride events attended by officers. So before I move on to the next question, which is question 9, I'm asking whether that nipple sticker, smiley face over the crotch, skimpy underwear guy performance in front of children at Winsford Pride 2024 poses a risk of being sexually inappropriate. Because when you look at the law around this, it can be a little bit of a grey area. If it's if it's a drag performance, it can depend on a lot of factors, and whether it's considered sexually explicit or just sexually suggestive can make the difference as to whether a crime has been committed or not, which is unbelievable, isn't it? Surely, to God, we shouldn't really legally be allowing anything that's sexually suggestive around children, and anything that's happening where it's sexually suggestive to that degree, where someone's nipple stickers are coming. I mean, like, if that's someone who's presenting as a woman, as a female, which he is, young children aren't necessarily going to know that that's not a woman. So from that child's perception, that's a woman doing a burlesque, sexy dance in front of them in skimpy knickers, who then is dancing topless because their nipple stickers have come off during that performance. It didn't look as if they came off accidentally either. It looked as if it was actually part of that performance. And if you're confusing children or you're subjecting them to things that are outside of their developmental capacity to really deal with in a healthy way, similarly with the ideological grooming, if it's persistently being pushed, these are the kinds of things that tip something into being criminal, rather than not being criminal. So the police may think that this is more of a grey area than it actually is when we look properly at the nature of what actually happened there. My view is they shouldn't be ignoring it. This needs more thought, at the very least. So question 9, and that's why I'm doing this. That's why I'm doing these freedom of information requests. As boring, as tedious as they might seem, you have to do this in order to gather the evidence of what the actual police's position is, what their policies are, what their safeguards are, if they're really thinking things through, if they're dealing with things appropriately, if they really should be threatening to arrest councillors who are trying to report legitimate concerns. it's that kind of thing, because I think when you've got that kind of thing happening over and over again, you do have like quite strong evidence that you have a ideologically captured organisation. And the last organisation in the whole world that should be ideologically captured is the police force that polices on the basis of public trust. Number 9, how much funding, if any, has Cheshire Constabulary spent on Pride events across the borough from April 2022 up to the current accounting period that has not included direct event policing costs? Please include expenditure in donations to Pride organisers, police promotional materials, etc. Because the police are there, they take part, they've got their flags, they've got loads of little gimmicky things on their stalls and things like that. Certainly at Chester Pride, they've got a police presence there all day. There's like 2 or 3 officers on that stall. There's officers that are going round on the parade, and then there's materials that they're giving away to people for free with like rainbow flags all over them. So that's a cost, isn't it? And we keep being told that police forces are really strapped for cash, and that's why they can't ever come and properly investigate burglaries, and they can't seem to get on top of the antisocial behaviour that our communities, particularly low-income communities, are plagued with. And yet, you know, it would be interesting to know how much is being shelled out on all of this, and then that's before we get onto the whole thing of the cost of DEI staff. And then 10, has this spend increased year on year, and if so, by how much, and in each of those, by how much in each of those accounting years? So they got back in touch with me and they said there may be a delay. We only respond to requests that fall within, and then they state the criteria, and obviously one of the criteria is Freedom of Information Act or Environmental Information Regulations, which this does. Then they got back in touch with me today and they said because on this account it's A and then CLR, so it's almost like a councillor or a Claire. Could be either of those, couldn't it? And it's a pseudonym, and you can have a Freedom of Information account under a pseudonym. And when I first submitted my first Freedom of Information request, it was at a time when it was really intimidating environment, and I didn't know whether to do that in my own name or not. So I just went with that, and I thought that they're going to know, the council are going to know on the other end that it's me asking those questions, but I might just do that because I just felt more comfortable to do that. It's just distanced me from my councillor role a little bit. Also, as a councillor, I should be able to ask questions and have that level of responsiveness and information provided to me as a right, really, as an elected member who's representing the public. That's what our protocol says. But that's not what happens in reality. So it's quite shameful, in a way, that a councillor is in a position where they feel they have to go through an FOI process. The IOC, you know, does it have teeth or doesn't it have teeth? This is the sort of like regulating body of freedom of information requests. That's a debate. But certainly it's embarrassing for councils if they're continuously coming up against this, the disapproval and being censured by being corrected by the IOC for not answering questions properly. So they're probably not going to want to do that. So I've probably got a better chance of getting these answers going through that route, but I shouldn't have to as a local councillor. But the police came back and they said, this has been submitted under a pseudonym, and then they tried to say that legally they don't have to answer it, and would I please give them my full name? And it's like, well, let's have a look, let's look into this. So I did. I was sure I could remember that you don't have to do that. There are some nuances around it, but basically they shouldn't be knocking the request back. So I've answered them and I've just said, no, according to this section of the law and this, I don't need to do that. Please just proceed with providing the answers. Shouldn't be this hard, should it? Shouldn't be this hard, but it is. So we just have to keep going.